10 tanks. That's right, Ukrainian special forces called White Wolves were able to destroy 10 modern combat battle tanks of Russians in one single attack. And I mean, Russians were already short on the military vehicles, but now the situation is critical, so that's why they have to bring 80-plus-year-old tanks to the front lines. And to make things even worse, according to the British intelligence, Ukrainians are already showing the very first signs of their counter-offensive in Bakhmut. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And today we begin again with some cringe material. So this is the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, who is responding to the initiative of the United Kingdom to send depleted uranium shells to Ukraine. And in response to that, he made this video and he said, okay, so these UK people will be sending depleted uranium, and then you know what, Russia will actually be sending us, real uranium shells, and we're gonna use them if needed. I mean, to be honest, the opposite to depleted uranium is enriched uranium, and I'm not even a physicist, but I mean, that's okay, you can call them real uranium. Next we have a video from far east of Russia, and as you can see right here, there is a big transportation of very old Russian tanks, T-54 and T-55s, and they're being transported closer to Ukrainian front lines. Some of these tanks were used in the 50s and also in 1940s, but the Russian propaganda was saying, well, they stood the test of time, that is why they're going to crush these modern and flimsy American tanks, such as, for example, Abrams or Leopard 2. And I mean, okay, good luck. But okay, now back to the real military vehicles, and as you can see from this picture, this is the Czech Republic multiple launch rocket system RM-70 called Vampire. And reportedly, it is being used by Ukrainians in their eastern front lines. Next we have a picture of a Finnish armored personnel carrier, Sisu XA-185, which is also being used by Ukrainian forces. And then right here is the self-propelled artillery system called Susanna II from Slovakia, which is being used near Bakhmut. But wait, there is more. Besides Western military vehicles which are already being used in Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers, they continue and already finalize their trainings on other equipment. Such as, for example, right here is the picture from Poland, where Ukrainian soldiers are training to use their tanks PT-91 Twardy. And then right here are American armored personnel carriers called Striker, which Ukrainians are training to use currently in Germany. And ultimately, here is a picture of a French fighter jet Mirage 2000, on which Ukrainian soldiers have been trained for the last several months. Besides military support with the actual combat vehicles, some other countries, they started to show their support at least financially. Such as, for example, the country of Japan, which recently announced its $470 million support to Ukraine after its recent visit of its Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to Bucha. And while Ukraine is actually receiving all this modern military equipment, its soldiers are training, and the tactics for the counter-offensive are being developed as we speak, the Ministry of Defense of Russia, they started to give the medals of honor to those pilots which intercepted, let's call it like this American Reaper drone recently. And I mean, it is just yet another confirmation that Ukraine is actually fighting for its freedom and for the right thing, while for Russia this whole entire war is just a symbolic increase of popularity of Putin in some way. And then right here is the video from one of the subways in Moscow, where we can see this digital display saying that something is about to happen today on March 23rd. But what is this? It is not yet revealed. And if you're also curious what is going to happen and don't want to miss it, just please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also follow my second channel, The Russian Dude Clips, where I post under 1-minute summaries every single day. The link will be down below. Alright, and before I talk about Ukrainian Special Forces White Wolves destroying 10 modern Russian battle tanks in one single night. Let me give you a very quick update from the south. And first of all, as you can see from this video, in one of the recent nights there were several drones attacking the bay in Sevastopol, and some of these drones were aqua drones. Then we go to Odessa, which has been recently attacked by a Russian missile, and today it has been revealed that the target was a small 3-floor residential building, which was the residency of local monastery. Our next stop brings us to notorious from the last year Antonovsky Bridge, and according to the Ukrainian side, they were able to destroy a Russian ammunition depot on another side of Dnipro river to the west of this bridge. And later on, as a result of Ukrainian artillery attack, they were able to destroy a Russian checkpoint in Oleshki along with the small concentration of Russian forces. Next we go to Zaporozhye, where a Russian missile directly hit a residential building. But according to the Russian ridiculous side, it was Ukrainians to be blamed, because they are the ones intercepted a Russian missile which deviated from its course and landed inside the residential buildings. However ridiculously stupid it sounds. Next we go more to the east, where Ukrainians were able to destroy a heavy mortar firing position of Russians to the east of Marinka. And then right here is the recently released video of Ukrainian special forces called White Wolves destroying 10 Russian modern battle tanks in one single night. And yes, like mentioned previously, Russia is already experiencing a very big shortage of the combat military vehicles, obviously including tanks. So whenever they lose 10 of them in one single night, and at least one of them was the most modern T-90 tank called Prorыв, this is pretty much critically unacceptable losses for the Russian army. And I mean, no wonder they are trying to bring whatever tanks they have left inside the country, even if it includes using the tanks which are 80 plus years old, which means that every single person who will be using it will be born after this tank was already built. Unfortunately, I had to blur the entire video of this night raid by White Wolves in order to be in compliance with the YouTube guidelines, but if you want to see the uncensored version, I uploaded it on my Patreon, where still 1 week of free access, and the link will be found down below. Alright, our next stop brings us outside of Ukraine to the Kursk region in Russia, where locals reported very loud noises next to its regional airport. Then we go back to Ukraine to Kiev region, where as a result of a Russian Shahid drone attack, a residential building has been severely damaged. And just overall, in the last 2 days, Russia launched a total of 21 of such drones, and Ukraine was able to intercept 16 of them. And then according to the representative of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, Vadim Skibitsky, Russia will most likely be switching their tactics in the upcoming months, because previously they were attacking the energy infrastructure of Ukraine before winter, hoping this will make just the regular civilians freeze. But since it never worked, now Russians will try to focus the concentration of Ukrainian forces and other military objects. But unlike civilian objects, which unfortunately Russia was relatively successful at attacking previously, the military objects will have a much better air defense systems surrounding them, which basically means that Russians' attack will be even worse going forward. And then we go to another major city in Ukraine, to Kharkov, and as you can see from this video, the President Zelensky has awarded this city the status of a hero city by presenting this award to its mayor Igor Terechov. And shortly after that, the President Zelensky visited, believe it or not, the outskirts of Bakhmut. Without a doubt, at this very moment, Bakhmut is the hottest point in the entire Ukraine, so just imagine the level of courage that Zelensky has in order to visit this city. Imagine, for example, Putin visiting Bakhmut, who even sits several meters apart from his most trustworthy advisors. And during this visit, President Zelensky listened to the stories of the defenders of this city, gave them some awards, and also gave them an encouraging speech that the entire Ukraine is with them. But besides Ukrainians fighting for their own country, land and freedom, it is no longer a secret that there are some soldiers from other countries. And such defenders of Ukraine are unofficially united as International Legion. And recently I was able to find this whole 30 minutes documentary on this International Legion. It is in English and I'll be sharing it for free on my Patreon. And once again, the link will be down below. And so yes, speaking about Bakhmut, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians in the last several days were not able to make any confirmed gains around this city. Which is confirmed by this map, which shows us the changes in territorial controls in the last 24 hours, and as you can see, the only thing Russians were able to do is to contest like literally a couple more meters of Bakhmut city center. And I think I need to zoom in a little bit and show just once again. This is how much territory Russians were able to contest in 24 hours. The advancement of Russians towards Bakhmut was kinda, I would say, relatively successful approximately a month or two ago, or at least on Russian terms it was relatively successful, but recently they are only able to move like several meters or dozen meters every single day at best. Some of the reasons for this, it is because the resources of Russians, especially closer to Bakhmut, are finite. And for example, sometimes they are losing as many as several hundred soldiers every single day, which was obviously increasingly depleting the morale of the Russian forces. At the same time, as soon as Russians got extremely close to Bakhmutivka river, as you can see right here, Ukrainians destroyed the major bridges over Bakhmutivka, which almost completely stalled the advancement of Russian forces to the east of Bakhmut. And in addition to that, there was one unit of Russian forces called Wagner, which was primarily responsible for this relative success of Russians in Bakhmut. But as you might already know, there were big tensions between Wagner and the Ministry of Defense of Russia and just conventional Russian forces, which basically means that Wagner started depleting their forces very quickly, not able to continue their Bakhmut invasion, and at the same time not receiving any support from the regular Russian army. And right now we see the consequences of these disagreements on the top layers of the Russian authorities, which resulted in Russians not being able to do pretty much anything inside Bakhmut. But wait, there is more. In addition to that, according to the British intelligence, Ukrainian forces started already showing the very earliest signs of their small and localized counteroffensive attacks inside Bakhmut. Specifically right now, their main efforts are concentrated on the south and southwest of this settlement, especially in order to protect this highway, which for Ukrainians is one of the main roads which they use to resupply their forces and take away the injured soldiers. And so what do we have right now? Russians are critically exhausted in Bakhmut, their morale is extremely low, and at the same time Ukrainians are expected to receive, and to be honest already started receiving Western military vehicles, which will be used in the places such as Bakhmut. And even though according to some sources, such as for example the British intelligence, the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Bakhmut already started, I honestly think that it will only develop even further in the next several weeks. And this battle for Bakhmut might very well become the turning point in this entire war. And if you don't want to miss any of these events as soon as they start happening, just please consider once again subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use the PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where it's still 1 week of free access. You can find all the links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.